Have you ever heard someone say, "Life happens," or "It's just life," when speaking of a situation or circumstance that they have recently experienced? There are certainly many situations that occur which we can attribute to normal life when they happen. For example, it's probably safe to say that when a baby is crying because he or she is hungry, or when a teenager fails a test because they did not study, that is just life. We might also say life happens, or something equivalent when someone loses a job or when they don't get the job. But have you ever thought that maybe some things we accredit as being just life might actually be something very different, because it is not just about life at all? There are many instances or occurrences that happen in our natural life that are more of a spiritual issue than a natural one. Unfortunately, many people do not have the ability to understand the difference simply because they've never accepted the spiritual truth about God and His Son, Jesus Christ. In his letter to the church at Corinth, the Apostle Paul said, "The natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are folly to him, and he is not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned." According to Paul, when we are living according to the desires and purposes of our carnal nature, we cannot accept the things of God. So the question is, how do we discern? How do we know when we are more directed to satisfy the things of the flesh instead of the things that pertain to God? And furthermore, how do we know when the circumstances we go through are just life happening instead of a spiritual battle that we need to be warring against in the heavenlies? First of all, as a Christian, in order to discern whether we are more driven by the flesh, we must be willing to honestly answer some basic questions about ourselves. Do we spend more time thinking about what we want or how we want things to be, more than we spend time thinking about what God desires based on what He has said in His Word? Jesus said, "But seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you." Meaning, seek the Lord first. Put God first. Place Him above everything else in your life, and place Him before anything else in your life. Carnal-minded people tend to only call on God when they are in need. Spiritually minded people keep God in the forefront of everything they do, and they do not do anything without Him. Another question to ask ourselves is, are we more concerned about our own personal needs more than we are concerned about the needs of other people? In his letter to the Philippians, the Apostle Paul wrote in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3-4, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others." Carnally minded people seem to always be more troubled about the issues they have rather than the problems or circumstances of other people. Spiritually minded people understand that when they help the people around them through their difficulties, God will always make a way to get through the complications that arise in their own personal lives. There are many other questions that can be addressed to help us understand whether we are living in a carnal state or a spiritual one. Do we love God and people more than we love ourselves? Do we seek pleasure more than we seek God? Are we content with where we are and with what we have, or do we always want more? Are we always willing to forgive other people when they do things that hurt us? Do we spend time with God in prayer for others, even those we believe to be our enemies? The truth is that we must first make sure we are living a life of spiritual maturity, denying our carnal nature in order to address the second question that we asked previously. which is how do we know when the circumstances we go through are just life happening or a spiritual battle? As we learned earlier, we cannot receive the things of God without spiritual discernment, and we cannot have spiritual discernment if we are living as a natural man giving into the desires of our carnal flesh. The writers of Hebrews, in chapter 5, verse 14, eloquently stated, "But solid food belongs to those who are of full age. That is, those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil." In other words, it takes a lot of practice to become mature, but it takes maturity to be able to discern good from evil. There's no doubt that we live in a time in which it's very difficult to know whether what we face in day-to-day circumstances is just life happening, or if it's something beyond this world that we need to address as spiritual warfare. Without the discernment of God working in our lives, we have absolutely no hope of recognizing the difference between just life and the spiritual attack of the enemy of our soul. The Bible teaches us that the devil comes to steal, to kill, to destroy, but Jesus came to give us an abundant life. The Word also tells us to be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. But James 4:7 said, "Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you." In every area of our lives that the enemy may try and attack us spiritually, God has made a way of escape. But it does take discernment to know the difference between just life and spiritual battles. The carnal man has no hope of knowing the difference. But the person who walks with God will be given what he needs to both see the battle and win the battle, because he is victorious in Jesus Christ.